Okay, so today we're going to take a deep dive into something pretty amazing. I think it's a hidden world beneath our feet.
Yeah,
It's a world where trees actually communicate with each other and share resources and even kind of look after their young.
right. It's really incredible. Like, if you were to tell someone this who's not familiar with the research, they might think it's straight out of science fiction.
Right. It does sound like a fantasy novel or
It
something.
does, yeah. But the evidence is there. And it's really revolutionizing how we think about trees and forests in general.
So we're talking about what's it called? The Wood Wide Web, right?
Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah. That's the popular term for it.
catchy.
I love that.
It's a great way to describe it.
So, for those of us who aren't botanists or ecologists, explain to us, like we're five, what is the Wood Wide Web exactly?
Okay, so basically, it's all about these partnerships between fungi and plant roots.
Okay, so fungi like mushrooms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mushrooms are just the fruiting bodies of fungi. The main part of the fungus is this vast underground network of filaments called hyphae.
And these hyphas, they form these intricate connections with the roots of trees.
Okay.
And they basically act as extensions of the tree's own root systems.
So it's like the trees are getting a boost to their root
Yeah,
system.
exactly. They're able to tap into a much larger area of soil to gather nutrients and water.
I see. And what's in it for the fungi? They're not doing this out of the goodness of their hearts, are they?
No, of course not. It's a mutually beneficial relationship.
Right. Nature's all about balance, isn't it?
Exactly. The fungi are getting something out of this too. You see, trees, they produce sugars through photosynthesis.
Right. Basic plant biology.
Exactly. And they share some of those sugars with the fungi. So the fungi get a steady food supply, and the trees get this incredible expanded network of roots.
So it's like a trade deal.
Yeah, you could think of it that way. The fungi provide nutrients and water. The trees provide sugars. Everybody wins.
Okay, that makes sense. So that's the basic idea of this underground network. But this Wood Wide Web idea, that's where things get really interesting, right? Because we're not just talking about sharing resources, we're talking about communication.
Right, exactly. That's what makes it so fascinating.
So tell me about that. How are these trees actually communicating with each other through this fungal network?
Well, let's say, for example, a tree is being attacked by insects.
Okay.
It can actually release chemical signals through the mycorrhizal network.
The mycorrhizal network, that's just the scientific term for this fungal network, right?
Right, exactly.
I just want to make sure everyone's following along. So the tree is sending out a signal through the network. What kind of signal?
It's a chemical signal. Basically, it's like a warning to other trees in the network. Hey, I'm under attack. Watch out.
So it's like a forest-wide alarm system.
Yeah, exactly. And those other trees, they receive that signal and they can start to ramp up their defenses.
Oh, wow. So they're actually preparing themselves.
Yeah, they might start producing compounds that make their leaves less palatable to the insects, or they might release other chemicals that attract beneficial insects that prey on the attacking insects.
So it's like this whole coordinated defense system.
Exactly. And it all happens underground, out of sight.
That's incredible. This is making me think about all the times I've walked through the woods and just been completely oblivious to this whole other world buzzing with activity beneath my feet.
It's amazing, isn't it? And the communication goes beyond just warnings.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's research showing that these large, older trees that are often at the heart of the network, they're called mother trees.
Mother trees, I like that.
These mother trees, they can actually send nutrients to younger seedlings that are struggling or shaded out.
Hold on, so they're actually nurturing their offspring.
In a way, yes. It's like they're giving them a helping hand.
Wow, I had no idea trees were capable of that kind of parental care.
It really changes how you think about them, doesn't it?
It does. It makes them seem a lot more like us in a way.
Yeah.
You know, taking care of our families and communities.
It does. And there's even evidence suggesting that they can distinguish between their own offspring and those of other trees.
So they can tell who's related to them.
It seems that way. And they actually favor their own kin.
Wow, that's just wild. It really challenges our traditional understanding of trees as simply competing for resources.
Exactly. It's not just about competition. It's also about cooperation and kinship.
Okay, so I gotta ask. This whole communication thing, how does it actually work? Are they sending little text messages through the fungal network like, hey kiddo, send me your location. Need to transfer some carbon your way.
Well, it's not quite text messaging, but it's still pretty amazing.
So how do they actually differentiate between their own seedlings and those of other trees?
It seems that they recognize certain chemical signatures, sort of like a genetic fingerprint.
Okay, so it's like they can sniff each other out through the network.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
That's fascinating. So they're not just randomly sharing resources. They're actually making choices about who to help.
Exactly. It's a much more complex and nuanced system than we ever imagined.
This is making me rethink everything I thought I knew about trees.
Yeah.
They're not just these passive things standing in the forest. They're actively communicating, forming alliances, and even supporting their families.
It's a whole other world down there.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, what are the implications of all this for how we view and manage forests?
That's a great question, and one that we'll explore in more detail in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so stay tuned for that.
Hmm.
But before we go, I have to ask, are there any other examples of this kind of interconnectedness in nature?
Oh, absolutely. There are countless examples. We just haven't had time to get into them all today, but it really does make you realize that we're just scratching the surface of understanding the complexity and beauty of the natural world.
That's an exciting thought. And it's a great reminder that we need to keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking questions. Because who knows what other amazing discoveries are out there waiting to be made.
Exactly. There's a whole universe of wonders out there, and it's all right here on our own planet.
Okay. So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Wood Wide Web. We'll be back soon to explore even more fascinating aspects of this incredible underground world.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk more about this. It's a topic that I'm really passionate about, and I hope we've inspired our listeners to learn more about it too.
I think we have.
Yeah.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep marveling at the wonders of the natural world.
I'll second that.
So much to think about here.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about those mother trees and how they nurture their offspring.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind. Like, it really changes how we think about trees, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, for so long, we've kind of seen them as these, solitary individuals just competing for resources.
Right? Just kind of stand there doing their own thing.
Exactly. But this research shows that they're actually capable of so much more. It's like there's this whole other layer of complexity to forest ecosystems.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder what the implications are for things like forest management. Right? Like, we've talked about clear cutting before and the effects that it has on forests.
Yeah.
So what happens to this underground network when we clear cut a forest?
Well, I think it helps to kind of visualize it. Like, imagine you have this vast communication network, right? All these connections.
Right, like the internet.
Exactly. And then suddenly you just sever all those connections. That's essentially what happens when you clear cut a forest. You're not just removing trees, you're disrupting this whole intricate web of communication and resource sharing.
So it's like we're cutting the cables of the forest internet.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And what does that mean for the long-term health of the forest?
Well, it can have some pretty serious consequences. For starters, it makes it a lot harder for the forest to regenerate.
Oh, right, because those young seedlings, they rely on the support of those mother trees.
Exactly. They need that network to get the nutrients and water they need to survive, especially in those early stages when they're so vulnerable.
And I imagine it also impacts the diversity of the forest, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're only planting one type of tree.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not going to get the same kind of rich, interconnected ecosystem that you see in a natural forest.
Right, because a healthy forest is one with lots of different species of trees and plants and animals.
Exactly. It's all about biodiversity. A diverse forest is a resilient forest. It's better able to withstand all sorts of challenges like disease outbreaks, insect infestations, even climate change.
So what can we do about this? I mean, is it all doom and gloom, or is there a way to manage forests in a way that protects this incredible network?
No, I definitely wouldn't say it's all doom and gloom. There's a lot of hope, I think.
Yeah.
The more we learn about these mycorrhizal networks, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions about forest management.
Right. Knowledge is power.
Exactly. And there are already a number of practices that can help, like selective logging, for example.
So instead of just clear cutting an entire area,
You carefully choose which trees to harvest, leaving the rest intact. This way, you're minimizing the disruption to the network.
okay, so it's more about working with the forest, not against it.
Right. That's the key. And another really promising approach is using mycorrhizal fungi in reforestation efforts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can actually inoculate seedlings with beneficial fungi before you plant them.
So you're giving them a head start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It helps them establish those connections to the existing network more quickly.
That's amazing. So we can actually help rebuild those connections.
We can. And I think that's a really empowering thought. It's not just about protecting what's left, it's also about actively restoring what's been lost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it makes you realize how much we still don't know. There's so much more research to be done.
Oh, yeah. There are so many questions still unanswered. For example,
Yeah.
how does climate change affect these mycorrhizal networks?
That's a good question. Because I know climate change is having a huge impact on forests around the world.
It is, and we're only just beginning to understand how these intricate relationships between trees and fungi might be affected by things like rising temperatures and changes in rainfall patterns.
Yeah, I imagine those changes could really throw things off balance.
They could. Some fungi are more sensitive to changes in temperature and moisture than others, so as the climate changes, we might see shifts in the composition of these fungal communities.
And how would that impact the trees?
Well, that's something we're still trying to figure out, but it's possible that it could affect everything from the tree's ability to absorb nutrients to their resilience to pests and diseases.
Wow, so it's like this whole new layer of complexity in an already complex system.
It is, but I think it's a challenge that we need to embrace. Because the more we understand about these connections, the better we'll be able to protect and manage our forests for future generations.
Right, because our forests are so important. They provide us with so much from the air we breathe to the wood we use to build our homes.
And they play a crucial role in regulating the climate, absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it's really in our best interest to learn as much as we can about these amazing ecosystems and to do everything we can to protect them.
I agree. And I think the mycorrhizal network is a perfect example of why that's so important. It's this hidden world beneath our feet that plays such a vital role in the health and resilience of our forests.
It really makes you look at the world with new eyes, doesn't it? I mean, every time I walk through the woods now, I'm going to be thinking about this vast, interconnected network beneath the surface.
Me too. It's amazing to think about all those trees talking and sharing and supporting each other.
It's really humbling. And it just goes to show that there's still so much wonder and mystery to be found in the natural world.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so exciting to study.
You know, it's like we've been missing this whole other dimension of the forest.
Yeah.
Like we've had blinders on this whole time.
It's amazing when you think about it, how much is going on right under our feet that we just never even knew about.
And this is just one example, right?
Yeah.
There are probably countless other hidden connections and relationships in nature.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many mysteries still waiting to be uncovered. It's what makes science so exciting.
Right, like who would have thought that trees could communicate and cooperate like this? I mean, it seems like something out of a science fiction novel.
It really does, but the evidence is there.
Yeah.
And it's based on solid scientific research.
And the more we learn, the more questions we have. Right? It's like every discovery opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
Exactly. It's a never-ending journey of exploration and discovery.
So to our listeners out there, the next time you're walking through the woods, take a moment to really look around and appreciate what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Because those trees, they're not just standing there passively. They're actively engaging with each other and with the environment in ways that we're only just beginning to understand.
Imagine that network of roots and fungi extending beneath your feet, connecting all those trees in a vast underground web.
Wow. It's mind-blowing when you think about it.
They're sharing resources, sending warnings, supporting their offspring, all through this intricate network.
It really makes you feel small, doesn't it?
It does. It's a reminder that we're just one part of this incredible web of life.
And that we need to approach nature with a lot more respect and humility.
Absolutely. Because the health of our forests and the health of our planet are inextricably linked.
And ultimately, our own well-being depends on the health of the planet.
That's right. We can't separate ourselves from nature. We're all connected.
Well, this has been an amazing journey for me.
Me too.
We started off thinking about trees as solitary individuals, and now we see them as members of a complex and interconnected community.
And we've learned that this interconnectedness extends far beyond the forest. It touches every aspect of the natural world.
It's been a real eye-opener.
It has. And I hope it's inspired our listeners to look at the world with a fresh perspective.
I think it has. So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Wood Wide Web.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep marveling at the wonders of the natural world.
I couldn't have said it better.